Okay. What is that
That's
sound
great.
effect?
That's my.
So good.
Give me like 48 hours, and someone needs to talk me off the ledge. Otherwise, it's coming off.
The fuck is wrong with you this morning?
We're going down
Get
to like
it together.
buzzing to like a number 2, for real.
I think about that all the time.
Every day.
Just
every day.
Just take it off.
Hey friends, welcome to the Separated at Birth podcast with your hosts Katie Martin and Karen Burke-Brown. This is the podcast where we find alignment in the most unlikely places, proving that lightning can strike anywhere at any time. We'll weave together a world of middle-aged empowerment as single moms, businesswomen, and creatives. Finding alignment, navigating relationships after divorce, raising kids, building businesses in the creative space, and doing the hard work of unearthing our very best selves in the process and having a lot of mother effing opinions about it. We're so stoked to have you here, so let's go. Let's get into the episode. Okay, Susan Guidi joins us today on the Separated Birth podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So excited to have her here.
Sorry.
A Tampa, Florida native. She's a business owner. She's a bodybuilder. She's an improv comic. She is all the things. And we are just so pleased and excited to have her here with us today. She's joining from Tampa. She's lived abroad. She's pioneered ultrasounds in South America. She got her degree at Johns Hopkins University and has taught. She lived in Paris for a year, and
amazing.
Basically just has, kicked ass and taken names her entire life. So we're so stoked to have her here today to kind of unpack a little bit of her story. We want to get into, our typical topics, which are relationships and sort of surviving relationships, surviving some of the toxic relationships, but also championing the best relationships that we have in our lives, which may or may not include our partners or our best friends or what have you. She's a mom, she's a grandmother, and Susan, I'm so thrilled to have you today. I'm so excited. I know you're going to entertain us and just, we're going to be able to get in the weeds in a lot of this stuff, so we're so thrilled to have you. Susan, will you just kind of unpack a little bit of your story, just kind of introduce yourself, where you're from, kind of what you're about, and then we'll kind of get into some juicy stuff.
I'll do my 2-minute sort of pitch here. From Cuban Catholic from Tampa, Florida. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. My very American from upstate New York father married a Cuban woman he met in Tampa, and as soon as they were married, he went to mortuary science school in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was going to be a funeral director. Mm-hmm. My mother was pregnant with me. 6 months later, he finished mortuary science, that's hard to say, school, and we moved back to Tampa where I grew up. I'm 67 years old, so I grew up in the early 60s. And I have to say, we were a very modest income. My father was a funeral director, and my mother worked outside the home. She had 3 girls, and it was idyllic. I was a tomboy. I was madly in love with my father. I had a very tough, harsh mom. But that made me be like him. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do everything. I was the firstborn that man did. So he was a talented musician.
Oh, wow.
So from the time I could remember, he taught me piano. And we'd listen to Barbra Streisand. And he would travel away in a traveling harmonica band. He played on Ed Sullivan, for those of us who are old enough.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Who Ed Sullivan is. So
that is cool.
His sort of, he was of that generation. They didn't get to say, fuck it, and I'm going after my dreams. Mm-hmm. He had to be in this job, right? Yeah. Which he hated sort of in the end.
Oh.
And I grew up in a funeral home.
Yeah. I have a girlfriend whose dad was a funeral director, and she's like, yeah, I used to go downstairs in the basement and like play with all the equipment and like lay in the coffins that were unused and like just you know, it was like
Poke the bodies.
It was a play. It was like
Oh, wow.
where they played as kids. They were like, you know, embalming.
You don't know any
My dad-
different.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And in those days, my dad was a 2-pack a day Pall Mall smoker. Right?
Wow.
He also did 100. He was the first Renaissance man. He would do jigsaw because, like, he was a craft person. He was always in the creative. So he had a jigsaw machine in the embalming room, smoking, right? And I'd walk in and go, Daddy, what you doing?
Yeah.
And there'd be an open body there, and I'd just go, can I poke it? Can I touch it?
Wow.
I practiced the organ in the reception room with the dead body at the head of the room. I played Barbies there. Wow. So Barbie never finds out about that.
This
Dead
is so.
Barbie.
She'll be pissed.
My head is spinning. My head is spinning. I mean, what a childhood. And then did your sisters, you had 2 sisters?
2 sisters.
Did they also kind of fall into that creative, like, vein?
We
did
all
they
played.
adore your
So
dad
my
too?
mother was very jealous and very critical. And she became jealous of her oldest daughter.
Yeah.
Which is a big mistake in the parenting manual, okay? Don't be jealous
I would
of
venture
your
to guess
girls.
that would be problematic, yes.
You know, and it made me gravitate to my dad, but my dad was charismatic and fun, and he was a musician, and so she was always sure he was cheating on her, right? And he
Interesting.
would travel for these musical gigs. Finally, she screamed at him one night at the table and said, "Can't you just teach the kids how to play?"
Oh my gosh.
And
I
I
can
heard
imagine.
it, and I thought, I can do this. I'll be his lead harmonica player.
Yeah.
And we started a family harmonica band.
Oh my gosh.
We
Wow.
traveled the
You know,
United States.
I saw
Harmonica,
a reel
that is
on your
fantastic.
page during
Oh.
your one-woman show that you've done, and you do play the harmonica in it.
No, I play it.
It's incredible.
She's like, let me get it. That's fantastic. I love it.
That's amazing. What a story.
Oh,
Wow.
that's what it was. And, you know, so all of this I realize now in my mid-60s are my superpowers.
Sure.
Because all of this sort of young girl with rose-colored glasses, with a father who loved her, who was creative, but a mother who was not kind. Fast forward to, I wanted to go to medical school. It was 1975. There was an economic
Do
crisis.
you think
and
that
I-
because your dad was a funeral director, you had a sort of a kind of an obsession with the human body? Yeah?
No,
And then
not
that
so much
drove
an
your
obsession.
medical school?
My dad made a bet to the other. So funeral homes in those days were part-time ambulance services. So if you
I
lived
didn't
in
know
a
that.
small community like we did, if there was an ambulance call, the ambulances lived on residents and they were paramedics. So they had to know advanced CPR. They had to know everything, right? Smoking 2 packs a day, right? And
Don't do what we do, kids.
Yes. Do as I say,
exactly.
not as I do.
And one day he made a bet with the other guys who worked in the funeral home, and he said they had to take the advanced CPR. He goes, I'm going to teach my 2 little girls, and I bet they'll make higher grades than you were. And we were like 7 and 9.
Wow.
And he spent months teaching us every bone in the body, every muscle. And God,
Sorry.
bless it, that's okay. He's excited about that. You know,
You said bones.
we passed the test. Yes, exactly. I've got bones. Good one.
You never know what I'm going to say.
I
Yeah.
know.
I'll be here all week, ladies.
She's so quick.
You have to be. But anyway, long story short, we just had the most idyllic, childhood growing up. We started this harmonica band. My mother made all the costumes. We traveled all over the country. We fast forward to college. I'm supposed to go to medical school. That falls through. And I get into something called nuclear medicine school. And that was unheard of as well. Like, I literally am like the Marie Curie of ultrasound, because
Wow.
I am telling you that I've lived long enough that when I started in ultrasound, it didn't exist.
And was it just you and a bunch of dudes too?
No,
Wi-
there was
women?
a world of people. There
Okay.
just wasn't anybody in Dunk, Florida.
Yeah.
So I had to sort of teach myself. And then as I would scan, I would take them to the radiologist to say, hey, look what I'm doing. They go, oh, that's worthless. So the very doctors that I worked with would say, you can't do that. And I realized that most of my life was beginning this adventure of the more you told me I couldn't.
Right. The more you're like,
the more
oh, really?
I was
Watch
gonna
me.
say, watch me.
Yeah.
And I was such an outlier. My mother gave me a silver front tooth in my
When
year
you were a kid?
preceding- I broke my tooth because I was a tomboy.
Yeah.
And because she was so cheap, she said, oh yeah, we'll take the silver. I look like a fucking pirate. 4 years of high school. If you don't think you develop a warrior
Right.
my
mindset
God.
with that,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You learn how to smile real quick. Like,
you don't smile. If you
Yeah.
look back, these are like my pictures. But now you can say, oh, I see. That was preparing me.
Yeah.
There was
Right.
more to come.
Yeah.
right.
That's incredible. So then you go
Yeah.
from, you graduate. Tell me about like your
I-
career journey, and then how that maybe collided with your personal life.
So I go to nuclear medicine school. The only job that was available when I graduated here in Tampa was in West Palm Beach. So I moved like a young single girl, my early 20s, to West Palm. And I did speak Spanish. So I was always considered sort of Latina in a way, even though I don't look it. And I started scanning, and the doctors didn't appreciate anything I was doing. So I'd go back downstairs, scan some more. One day I diagnosed in an elderly gentleman something called an aortic aneurysm, and I saved his life because they hadn't seen it.
Wow.
And they said, now we're going to hire a real sonographer. And to pacify me, they said, we're going to send you to this course at Johns Hopkins. Like to...
Yes.
Get out of here,
that
kid.
was the beginning.
Let the
of
adults do the work. Let the dudes who are
so
practicing
patronizing.
medicine. Yeah.
go to Johns Hopkins for a week. And when I tell you I was thirsty, I guess that's what the young kids said. I was thirsty. I emptied wastebaskets. I did everything while I was there. And at the end of the week, the head of the department, one of the gods of ultrasound, he was British. He was like, would you like a job here? And he looked like Einstein. He was like all crazy looking, wrinkled lab coat.
Oh, geez.
And
yeah.
I remember going, are
Me?
you talking to me?
Yeah.
6 weeks later, I was in Baltimore. I left everything in Tampa. My parents couldn't even help me move my shit.
Oh, God. Look at, that's amazing.
And went to
and
Hopkins
how old
in
are
the
you at this
80s.
time?
21 and a half.
21 and a half. Okay.
Wow.
A baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baby.
Yeah. In Baltimore.
And then I moved to Baltimore, and they think I'm the most Latina person they've ever met.
Ever laid eyes on. Absolutely.
So they
They're
would
like, "You're
call me to
so exotic."
translate.
Oh,
you
wow.
know? And I'd go to like X-ray, and they'd say, hey, can you translate this barium enema, right? And I remember thinking, I don't have a lot of medical terms in Spanish, so I'm just going to use the ones I know. And if I don't know them, I'll put O and A's at the end of every word I tell.
Like
So
I
it's
speak
this
Spanish.
17-year-old kid with big brown eyes from some Latin American country, and he's having a procedure where we have to put a tube in their ass
Yeah.
and pump them full of it's barbaric.
yeah.
I
Oh.
have to translate that. So I end up telling him that we literally are going to put a tube up his ass and put some white stuff up there.
He's like, no, ma'am.
And he's 17? He's like, get the fuck out of here?
No, I think someone came in and rescued me and said it's not exactly like that.
Not quite that.
But I got a
You were like,
reputation
it's
for
Spanglish, okay?
for Spanish.
Oh my God.
And there came this chance from the universe to teach ultrasound for the first time in Chile with a medical missionary that had gone once before
Oh, fun.
and wanted a sonographer. And I went, I'll go. I didn't know where Chile was. I had to look on those big old atlases.
Yeah.
Yep, there we are. And how long were you there?
So the first time I was there for a week, I thought I was a rock star. And I met my former husband.
Yeah.
He was a doctor in the class I was teaching.
Was he from Chile or was he
he's French and Chilean.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So he was suave.
Exotic.
And
Oh, yeah.
Charismatic. Oh, he was.
Baby girl was a
beautiful.
long way from home and
20-something,
That's
she's
what I
like,
told
you.
somebody, too. I go,
Yeah.
I had to go 3,000 miles to meet someone.
yeah.
And then the next year I got invited back, but probably because of this relationship, to be on sabbatical. Mm-hmm. And we got married at the end of 6 months, and he was French. And he wanted to come to the States, but he couldn't get in. Because in those days, remember, there was no, I can't even believe we're saying, no computer. So if you took entrance exams, they were given once a year, and you had to like fly to the United States. So he got into France, and off we go to Paris.
Yeah.
And I get pregnant literally 2 months later, because I remember he was 5 years older than me, and him telling me, "You're at the," he had an accent as well. I married my mother, essentially. Oh God, she could relate.
Yeah.
You know? I married my mother, and he had a strong accent, and he would say, "You're at the perfect age to be pregnant."
Oh.
Like, oh, well, let's inseminate me. Come on, let's go.
Right? That feels very clinical.
Jeez. Right.
And then I was lost for the first time. Here I was, this young girl who had gone to South America and all these cool things. I go to Paris, and I can't work. The Parisians are mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
You
I'm,
don't
like,
speak the
crying every
language.
day. American. Ugh.
Isn't that an interesting, like a mindset shift too? Just here's this girl that's like go go go, taking on every adventure, throwing caution to the wind. Yes, I'll go here. Yes, I'll go there, and following your instincts, right? And allowing goodness to flow to you, and suddenly it's like the guillotine drops on you.
Oh, what a
and
great term.
everything
Right.
in your mindset went from this grand adventure that is life, and that you've got the world by the balls, and now it's got you by the balls.
I would imagine it feels like you're out of control, where you were like, I'm
Yeah.
calling my own shots.
And now you're like,
but now
shit,
you're like,
I'm
ugh.
far from home,
Yeah.
you know, and there's just a mindset.
And he was,
baby.
it was the
Somersault.
beginning too. Remember, my generation is of the men that the men got to go away.
Yeah.
The men got to go and be famous. The men got to be a doctor for 12 hours in a country where he was beautiful and charismatic, and he spoke fluent French, and he's gone for 12, 14 hours a day, and I'm all by myself. And there's no TV, there's no computer. I'm writing letters to make a phone call. People, I mean, this is in my lifetime. To make a phone call would have cost you half your rent.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you couldn't call. And then I remember sitting around and going, I need to call home. Like, I need to call Johns Hopkins because I can't spend
How
this year
isolating.
doing nothing. So I enrolled. They introduced me to a professor at the University of Marie and Curie, Pierre Curie in Paris, and Monsieur Panigel. And he was this rotund, he looked like a character out of Disney, you know?
Yeah. Like a.
Just a rotund in a black suit. He wore the same round black suit every day. He had dandruff.
Rotund also means fat. It's fine.
It's round. He's round. Like a weeble wobble. That's what you're describing is what I'm
Exactly.
thinking.
He was so like, but
He was carrying a big
loved
fat
me.
tire with him all day long.
But he loved me. He spoke like 17 languages.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
he did research on the placenta on baboons. So he would travel with just pygmies and him and quinine and go into the, you know, whatever jungles to study placenta of baboons.
Wow.
And when he realized that I could scan with ultrasound, he said, Madame Guidi, we are going to do a project together. You will get your master's degree, and we will work every day together. And then you will write your thesis. And I said, okay.
Yes.
And I remember telling my ex-husband, I'm going to get my master's degree. He goes, you're not going to be able to do this. I remember us crossing the courtyard of the university, and I thought, I have something to do.
Yeah, you had this
Give you a purpose.
Yeah, right.
Outside of, because
And
you had
when
a
he told
baby,
me-
right? Or no? Did you have a baby
No,
at the
I was
time?
pregnant.
Okay.
You were
Okay.
pregnant.
So
Right. So you went from like bored to tears, not knowing what to do with yourself, to suddenly being able to funnel your energy back toward this beautiful purpose.
well, it's like
again.
all of a sudden we're going to do this project and someone's going to see me and they're going
And
to
you
validate
weren't just a
my
baby
knowledge.
maker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened quickly though was that I was supposed to scan placentas. Well, you know what happens in Paris? They don't give you the placentas because they use them for beauty products.
Yes. Isn't that crazy? I was going to ask
So
you
you
about
couldn't
that.
scan them. So I called Hopkins and they said, come home. We'll give you your own placental pathologist. You can do all the research here. You can use all the machines. And I thought I can get one of my friends who was an obstetrician to see me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back home by myself for probably 8 weeks
Dang.
and did all the research. And it was amazing.
I bet that
And
freedom
he-
was glorious at that time. You know,
It
feeling
just- oh.
you started that way and then got kind of
And
stifled,
did
and then
you feel like, I don't see my husband anyway. He's gone 14 hours a day, so who gives a shit?
There just
where I
was
am.
beginning to be this sort of thing. There was just a thing, you know. There was just a thing, and I often
Meaning
say,
like you were living sort of these separate existences, even
I
though you were
remember
married.
thinking I was Princess Diana. Does that?
My hair just stood up on my head, and yeah.
I got married
Trapped.
at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
in the same month as her.
Wow.
I watched from Chile the wedding,
Yeah.
and I felt so aligned with her because I kept thinking, I can
feel
empathize
that.
with the lone, whatever that absence is, that void. But he was perfect. He could
Right.
cook better than me. He could sew better than me. One day, here's an example. We were very poor. And I decided that I would not buy anything, that I would make my own pregnancy outfits.
No.
So one afternoon, I sew all fucking day long.
Oh God.
I'm so proud I've made baby sheets. I am just, and we had no Pinterest, no nothing. Like I'm
Yeah.
just going
Make it
by
up
a
as you go
pattern,
along.
Yeah.
by a pattern, right? And I hold up the dress in front of him as he comes home and he goes, rip all of that out. You've done it wrong. And I went, how do you know? He goes, I made my own pants in medical school. So
Of
there were
course
these
you did.
messages. So anyway, just I finish. 5 days before I deliver my first baby, I give my thesis. I graduate with honors. in
Yes,
this-
you do. Yes, you do.
And we move back to the States. Now he gets to work at Hopkins, and I don't. We can't both work
With the baby.
at my alma mater or whatever. I have the baby, and then 6 months later we moved to Chile. And Chile's kind of idyllic until Pinochet was a dictator. Here I live in a dictatorship. You know, we had state of emergencies and things like that, and we were pretty poor. And we realized we're going to move back to the States because
Yeah.
we lived there for about 3 years and made nothing. He was a full-time radiologist. We were just... So we said, we're going to take a chance and come to the States. We moved to Tampa, and within 6 months of us moving here, one night he goes to the gym. We only had one car. 2 babies under 5, 1 car, me working 80 hours a week. I was teaching. I ran the local community college ultrasound program. So it was a nightmare. And he takes off one night to go to the gym. And he doesn't come back. And it's like 7 o'clock, and it's 8 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock. No phones, no cell phones.
Sure,
You can't.
nothing.
I'm driving with my mother's car around Tampa like a maniac, thinking, is he going to be dead in the street? Like, how am I going to find him? And then I come back home, and like a half an hour later or something, he pops in kind of sheepish. And I realized shortly after that he had been seduced in the like steam rooms of the gym, but now with a woman.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
With a man.
Never suspected
And-
anything before, or never had any sort of inclination of.
So when my daughters were in high school, I taught an introduction to young women's health and sexuality. And when we came to the point where we said, should you have sexual experience before you get married? I'm going to give a resounding yes, because I am telling you, I'm of the good girl generation, right? We didn't sleep with anybody before we got married.
Right.
You didn't test out anything. And I had
No comparison.
no gaydar either.
No.
I had none.
Gotcha.
He was perfect. He
Yeah.
cleaned, he cooked, he dressed,
You're
he
like,
was beautiful.
wait
he
a
smelled
second.
good.
We're a little too
Wait a
domesticated, aren't we?
Until we moved back to the States.
Yeah.
And guess what time in the United States it was? It was the peak of AIDS.
Right.
And there became the journey of The Secret.
I see.
Because I realized I couldn't tell anyone because they were stoning people in Florida if you had AIDS.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So he's this doctor, and we're this beautiful little family, in our Sears portrait. I did make the mistake, and this is where the stand-up comes in, of telling my mother that we were having problems. And just to grow up in this mentality, this was what my mother said. You're having problems? You know what your problem is? You don't cook or clean enough.
But that was
must be
her.
it. That'll make a man gay.
Right.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah. You're
So
That's just ignorance,
Yeah.
where it's
Oh, she loved him. No, she still
Yeah.
loves him. She still loves him.
So how
Loves
long
him.
were you married to him in total?
20 years.
And you had 2 children with him or 3?
No. He got arrested, as a good doctor will do. And I really thought that was going to be the end. And then we went to some counseling, and I remember in those days you could get arrested and everything was hidden. They would just quash the case and never to be heard of. There weren't any mugshots or mugshot.com, nothing.
Yeah.
So he sort of got away with it. But in our counseling, the counselor looked at me and said, I've tested his IQ. He's a genius, but he's also a pathologic narcissist,
Boy. But what did he get arrested for?
Lewd and lascivious behavior.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, because
Okay.
he sort of, I think from the intellectualism, was starting to seek out these activities that he could get away with. I'm sure there were tons more. This one, I just had an awareness. And then like a year later, we must have had sex once. And I swear to God, it's like the universe says, I'm going to give you this pregnancy because this will save you for your journey moving forward. This baby, it's a lot to say that he's going to save me. He's going to help. It's going to help.
There's
And
a
So you had
purpose.
sex one time and you got pregnant from that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I must have ovulated because I work in this.
Yeah.
I look back and I go, this must have been day 7,
Yeah.
in the cycle.
Wow.
So I really feel like, and that's how that
It's
child
just divine.
was. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
divine.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah.
So you
it
have
was
3 children.
So I have 3 children, 2 girls, both are married, and they make up 7 grandchildren. And then my son, he is a 3rd-year medical resident, and I do this motivational speaking, and I talk a lot about him because when you raise a boy and you raise them by yourself, oh, I don't think I've ever, I swear to God, he's like a little angel, how angels came on earth, and we've never had words, and he's funny, and he's musical, and he's artistic, and he was raised with 3 women, with this, what I call marinated in like maternal love.
Wow.
And he lived with me during the pandemic. That was
Yeah.
the other cool thing. I said it was like living with Einstein.
So how old are your
love
children
that.
now? Your daughters and your son.
41, 39, and Jean-Claude's 31.
31. Amazing.
Yeah,
Now,
it's a
is-
great story.
is your ex-husband, is he still around, and is he still involved with the kids? And
No, and I will tell women that as we learn to start forgiving ourselves for stuff, right? And that's first and foremost. You have to look at them in a way that no longer sort of, I guess I picture myself as having like a defense shield around him. I don't think he's not a kind person. He's an awful person, right? But I really am still doing the work right now, and this sort of forgiveness, and not being triggered, because I used to say he's my kryptonite. There was just something about him and his partner and my mother, that, holy trinity or not so holy trinity of energy that wasn't great for me, So during the pandemic, I almost lost my son in Haiti. He went to Haiti and got stuck there.
Oh gosh.
And I said, at 60 something, I'm going to give something. I got him back, and I said, I'm just going to be on a mission to be the best representative of this age, and women understanding that there's no age that's too late. That if you look back at your youth, you've got superpowers that you developed, and then we find ourselves like little candles, having people just blowing out the candle, right? Or making us stay small or be silent. And I do the forgiveness prayer a lot for my ex-husband and his partner, and I thank them, because I'd never be who I am right now if I hadn't gone through that journey.
Isn't that the shit? Where like, it had to happen. This is why, but you're like, God, like,
damn
would
it.
I change it? Could I feel lighter had I not, carried all of this stuff, and having to go through the forgiveness every day and reminding yourself, these people don't define me. Like I made my own path kind of thing. But then you're like, gosh, they were part of creating who you are now. So it's like that, like, just damned if you, like, the struggle of accepting it and being like, fuck everyone. I'm just going to keep moving forward.
Tamping that rage that for
it's,
so long.
It's hard, because it's, how do you, it's always that deal that you make with yourself where it's like, this happened. I'm accepting it. I own it. I've got to keep moving forward. I can't let that eat me alive. And I have all the things, or I have these great relationships with my kids. Maybe despite that, maybe because of it, it's just that it's part of the human condition, I think. And it either taking it and like running with it and knowing that I'm better for it, versus, God, this happened to me and I was married to someone who was terrible to me. Like, you can,
and that's why I'm overweight, and that's why I drink,
be a victim
and a salty bitch,
or be like, you know what, I'm gonna run with this, and this happened. Let me show you, and just a lot of the things you're saying. I'm like, I always try to not head shrink people, but I try to like make sense of behavior and why someone would choose things, and even just going back to your mom, thinking of you gravitating towards your father. I wonder if there was like a, this is me being weird, but a sort of this deep-seated unconscious thing to be more like your dad. So you got that acceptance from your mom. Like, was your mom crazy about your dad? And if she was it something you're like, well, if I'm more like
that's
him,
a great point.
maybe she'll like me and be
so.
nice to me. You know what I mean?
And because you see that with kids that are abused. I mean, kids that are abused always tend to still want to get that validation from the parent who doesn't see them.
Right.
And my mother never saw me. And I think that that's 100% spot on. You just have to let go of it. It's when you see yourself. And then that's the only thing that matters.
Because you can't control anybody else. You can do the dances and be funny and be successful. And your mom is still like, well, I still like your ex-husband. Or he and I are still very close.
Tells me. Like, when I started doing comedy, I did comedy for that reason. Because I didn't have a voice. And comedy, for the first time, it was so fucked up after I got divorced, because I thought, well, now people are going to see. Yeah. They're going to see that he cheated on me and the struggle I went
I'm
through.
Fine. He did this to me, or I'm not the bad one.
He did this to me. I'm not the bad one. And then it wasn't like that, because I said, he got the doctor card and he got the gay card. I would literally have people that would come up to me.
Like, it's almost a trifecta.
Yes. Oh, that must have been so awful for him. Being
Right.
trapped
Yeah.
in- yeah.
He's the trapped one.
Right. Couldn't
Sorry,
be
Diana.
himself.
Stuck,
Sorry,
and they
Diana.
locked
He's
the
the
key in the
he's the
closet.
trapped one. Yeah.
He's
Right.
the trapped one. And then my mind was blown. That was the comedy. The comedy let me get up and say, does anybody else think this is screwed up? Because
Yeah.
this is what just happened to me.
Do you mind if we actually, if I pick a scab a little bit? Just the reason is I would venture to guess that there are many listeners to this podcast that may or may not feel stuck themselves. And so when you were in the point where you knew you had to start unraveling everything, and yet you have these children with this man, and you have these, you have a life that you've built, so to speak. However, however big the facade may be, you still have to do the work of unraveling that and then going your own way. So how do you, where was your mind and your heart in terms of, I have to get out of this and I have to break free and I need a clean break and I need to make a new life for myself? Like, where were you in that piece of it? Just because, again, I know there are other women that either feel stuck and don't know the next step. Like, how did you unpack that?
So as the latter years of the marriage, we had seen psychologists, and he was so brilliant, he would outsmart them, and it didn't last.
Did he admit to being gay ever?
Well,
In therapy or anything?
in therapy, but it was like, clearly, if you got arrested, there were lots of multiple incidents, and we get, this was the cord telephone in those days. We'd get hang-ups all the time, and they'd say, is Claude, and they'd hear my voice and click,
Oh, boy.
So he wasn't admitting to anything because he wanted everything. He wanted me, the perfect,
Yeah, he wanted the Stepford life
Wanted the
and
look.
his other life. Yeah.
and then this, which brought him excitement and things like that. I mean, really, he had a terrible pathology, and I didn't know anything about narcissism. So
So selfish.
about 3 years before, I realized I couldn't take it anymore. I just wasn't seeing. I felt, I was in my early 40s. I felt really sexual. I just thought, is no one ever gonna slap my ass? Like, is no one ever gonna like rip my hair? Like, just once.
Hinge
Like, I got
profile. I need an ass slapper. I need
But how
someone
many
who's
people come
straight.
up with, like, here I've been
Someone
from
that'll
my
undress me
beginning
with
of
their teeth.
sexuality. Yes, just pour hot
I get
candle
it.
wax. I had all kinds of things.
You're like, I'm ready. I'm ready.
I love
Oh, I
it.
had
Isn't that
so-
incredible how, God designed our bodies so that our sexual awakenings are at such polar different times than men and women? You know what I mean? A man is like at his most virile in his like early 20s or whatever, teens and 20s. And then it's like we're 35 plus when it happens to us. And
Yes.
then
Oh, it was just,
It's a sick
I was
joke.
done. And
Yeah.
so it's not real, but so anyway, I started to say, what am I you're gonna have to prepare for this. You're not gonna be able to just leave him. How do you prepare for this?
yeah,
So
you
I
got to get your ducks in a row.
started seeing attorneys. First attorney, female attorney. You know what she said to me? And we were at Macaroni Grill. And you know how they give you those crayons to write on
Yeah.
the paper? She's talking about, she goes, oh, darling, you haven't made like a German accent. You haven't made, darling. Why would you leave him?
Right. You can do anything you want. Maybe that's what she,
Oh,
Why-
yeah.
why
Take a
don't
lover.
you take a
one-
lover?
Yeah.
Take a lover.
Yeah.
As if I would just snap my fingers like fucking Cinderella and there a lover would appear and I'd have time between the laundry and the kids and everything else
Sure.
to just take that lover.
Yeah.
Take a lover, darling. And I was writing, because I was listening to her, I was writing on the brown paper and I'm writing, fuck you. Fuck you.
What's
Yeah.
that in German?
But the world
how do
wasn't
you-
fuck you, darling.
Just with an
Probably.
accent.
Yeah.
Greta. So I just, everywhere I turned, I was just like, what?
Right. No help.
No help.
And then we took up ballroom dancing, as if ballroom dancing was my last ditch effort. This will
This will
make
save the
it
marriage.
wants me.
Yes.
It was the beginning in like hyperspeed of the end. when I danced with him, you know, I say sometimes the universe has to bitch slap me for me to get the message. When I danced with him, he would sweat profusely, I remember. And he danced like a man who wasn't in love. Because when you dance, especially the Spanish dances,
Sure.
that can be sexy as hell.
It's intimate.
Or you know, he's not into any of this. And I got angry. And I finally found an attorney that said, before you do anything, because I saved every penny we had. Every penny we had, I knew where all the money was. He goes, take a big chunk of it, because the minute you file, he's coming after you big time, and then he'll lock up all the money. And my kids were in private school, and we had a beautiful house and all of the things. And so I took $200,000 out of our account, and he lost his mind. And then began the war. He would sue me every 2 years. It took us 2 years to get divorced. I started my own business with my divorce assets, because I said, you're not getting any lower than this. So you better like take some of that money and invest in yourself. I started doing stand-up, and then every 2 years he would take me back to court.
Even after your divorce?
No, I finally said no mas. Because I got permanent alimony. Because I sacrificed everything, right?
So that's why he sued you, to keep
I think
continuing
it was just to fuck with me. And plus I think he has a thing for me. Like I still think I was his possession. Do you know men like that?
Yep, I do.
I was the one that said no mas.
You don't quit on him. He makes those decisions. He moves people into place.
Me. It was like, who were you this whole time? Yeah, it was craziness. He stole everything in the house that was of worth. One afternoon, he still had keys to the house, and I'm an idiot, right? And he would come in and see the kids and then leave. And one afternoon, I walked in, and the kids were watching Steel Magnolias, and it's that part where Sally Field is like, you know, why couldn't it be me?
Yeah.
It's, you know,
The
Flat
cemetery.
Lisa.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And I'm drawn, and I look up, and I realize all these beautiful paintings and things are missing off the walls. And he had walked
It's
in
just
and
so
took
gross.
all the chachis, all the Limoges, all the paintings, all the thing.
The pettiness.
I think of that woman, and I just hung on, you know, like a ship in the storm for dear life. But with everything that somebody told me I couldn't do, you're not going to be able to start your own ultrasound business. And
Watch
I went, watch me. You can't do comedy. You're not funny. You're 50 years old. You know, you can't do that. Watch
me do it. Yeah. I am
love that.
so impressed. So, when did you start to, I realized that all of this is such a beautiful investment in yourself, your business, and then you started investing in your health and your well-being in that way. Tell us about that and the bodybuilding.
At the end of the kind of, in between some of the divorce process, then I'd be the person, because, you know, we grew up in this Cuban kind of Catholic affluent society. So I then became the person, if someone's husband was cheating on them, they would come to me.
Oh, yeah.
Like the godmother.
Yeah.
Like to seek advice. And this woman came up to me and she said, I think he's cheating. He's a sexual addict. Would you do a bodybuilding competition with me? And I was a gym rat. So I lived in the gym. You know, I started taking up boxing. I said, yeah. And at 47, I won.
Oh my gosh.
I took
I love
the whole
it.
thing.
I love
In
it.
between being a single mom, running my business, I just did it and did it.
That's
And
so difficult to do.
it was so difficult to do. But in those times, I was going through menopause. My father died, and I was coming off this stupid bodybuilding competition, and there were no coaches for reversing you out.
Oh, wow. I
6
didn't
months
think of
later, I
that.
broke my leg. I was down to 6% body fat. I broke my leg, so I think I was a little osteopenic. I developed Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, probably from all the inflammation and the cortisol and all this shit. And no one diagnosed it. And I just started on this beginning to believe, oh, but you're soon to be 50.
This is
You're in
aging.
menopause.
This is just aging.
This is
yeah.
just get used to
It's
not.
not. Yeah.
This is just what happens.
You're slowly becoming invisible, right? And I bought it. Hook,
And
line, and sinker.
when your dad died, I'm sure that just was like, because he was the true love of your life, you know, at that point, all the way through.
He's
That's
just
such a devastating, you know.
Yeah, he was the one that when I started my business, he was the only one. 6 months into, I said, "Daddy, I'm still in business." 6 months in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like,
And he goes, "Most business." He would always have one line he would tell me, and it would just like stay with me. He goes, "You know, most businesses fail. If you lasted 6 months, that's more than," he quoted some statistic.
Yeah, you're in. I love that.
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
I think my son is a lot like him. I often feel like my son, in a way, reincarnated some of this man's spirit.
that same spirit, yeah.
The creativity,
Personality.
the sweetness, he's funny. We did stand up together, my son and I.
Really?
I
I love that. That's
He
so
was
fun.
so good.
Oh my
So
gosh.
good.
When you
Wow.
first did that, what was your very first gig? What did that look like?
Oh, it was terrible.
Was there like
was
5 people in the
terrible.
audience and they,
No, I took a formal course because there wasn't a lot. If you looked back when I started,
fun.
Yeah, how does one
so was
get
this
into
almost
just doing
20
stand up?
years? Yeah, how does
Yeah.
one get into stand up?
Yeah.
I started to look for stand up for teaching because I taught ultrasound and I thought, oh, if I could use some of the stand up techniques, I'd be even funnier, right?
Yeah,
The
that's
best
great.
teacher of all time. Absolutely.
Right? So
Keep
I
everybody
went to
engaged.
classes in New York, and then there's a performing arts. They had a introduction to stand up, and I took it. And you got to do it in the small theater, and you took it for 12 weeks. And oh my God, I fell in love. And for the first time, I would get up on stage, and like you talked about, what do you do with the anger and all those emotions? Because none of us are going to get through these type of experience and tell me you weren't mad as hell.
Oh, right.
You weren't mad as hell.
We're doing a podcast to get through our pain.
It's
But I
therapy.
think
That's what we're doing.
True. It is. And to know that other women got really mad as hell. And when I got up on stage, no one told me to not be loud. I could be loud. I could say whatever I want. I could curse. Because as a good Catholic girl, we didn't curse either. All I wanted to say was fuck. I wanted to say it so
All
much
day
on
long.
stage. Not because it served any purpose in it,
Right.
but there was something so freeing for
Yeah.
a woman that just kind of let that go. And I was dating a guy from California, Hawaii. And I really liked him. And I thought he was a nice guy. But he broke up with me via email.
Ew.
And in the email, he signed it, his business signature, Aloha. And I was so pissed. I was
That
like,
is
who
fodder
does
for
that?
comedy if I've ever seen it.
Right.
And he had a little penis.
Oh, what a shame.
And I went,
You're breaking up with me? What are you
no!
talking about? Come on.
And the whole world is going to know now that you have a little
Packing a
penis.
Tootsie Roll,
You're
buddy.
like,
And so I had friends. It was the worst routine. I had friends take a bottle of cornichon, the little French pickles.
uh-huh.
And at some key moment in my stand-up, I say to the audience, well, he had a small penis. How small? I go, now it's your turn to say, how small was it? And then she walks up with this fucking bottle of cornichon.
Baby
Oh
pickles.
my gosh.
That's funny.
You're like, it's a sweet gherkin. It's just a little guy.
Oh
So
my
the
God.
first ones, and then I started putting my mother in the act because I went to New
Yeah.
York the first time, and I'm performing at the Gotham. It's a big deal. I'm in the taxi,
That is a big
and
deal.
this was the beginning of using her. She called, and she'd never say hello. She'd just go, Susan! She talks just like that. Where are you? And I'm going, I'm in New York. Like an Italian, right? Not New York. They're going to kill you and rape you and pillage you and leave you dead and dying in a gutter. And I'm like, Mom, I haven't dated in a while, so that sounds kinda
That's
cool.
okay.
It's a little
That
exciting,
might work.
actually.
Yeah. And I said, I'm actually getting ready to do I'm going to perform. I'm going to do stand-up. Why? screaming at me, "You're not funny," right before I'm walking on. She goes, "And I bet you're going to tell them about me, and if you do, I want a commission." And she hangs up the fucking phone, and I opened, and it killed.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
And I realized.
Did you call her back and you said, "I'll send you your
Oh, I
25
tell
cents"?
her all the time. She's never seen me perform.
Yeah.
Never seen me perform.
That's not a shock.
And I found myself healing myself with more of the traumas of her, you know, through this. And it was from the silver tooth
Wow.
to telling me about my period.
Oh no.
All women were cursed, and now you.
Oh God.
And I said, well, now here's this box of Kotex. Remember Kotex back at, you don't, because you're too young.
Yeah. No,
They were
I
like
do.
fucking adult diapers.
Yeah.
They literally separated your thighs. You had to wrap them up in a garter
There's a,
belt.
what about the belt and the whole,
Yes,
I
the
mean,
belt that caught up in your, because nobody
Yeah.
shaved in those days, so it caught
Right.
up in your, and I said, Mama, Cynthia Garcia uses tampons. Tampons will make your hole big. And then for the first time you go, wait, there's a hole? No one said anything about a hole.
No one's talking about that. Wait, what?
That's
You're
very
gonna have to go to
similar.
medical school to get that
Right,
information.
to understand. But I got a lot of that from my mother, but in a way that, because her mother told her nothing. You know, my mom I want to shave my legs, and my mom or my grandmother said, "You're too short." I'm like, what? You can't shave your legs, you're too short. And my mom was very logical and asked all the questions, and she was just like, what? But but I knew I knew everything as a kid, especially having two older brothers, but my mom was very open that way because her mother was not. And she was adamant about saying, you know, if you have questions, and she would draw, you know, the ovaries and what the uterus looked like, was very just like, if you have questions, you know. And so I've tried to be that way for my kids, just to be like, you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'll answer the questions that you have. And I, you know, in a logical manner, not clinical so much, you know, with a little bit of sass and humor, but just to answer questions so that they're not like, oh, wait, what is that? How, you know, boys should know that too. Right.
Without you, you know,
right.
So you might as well prepare them to not have that
Absolutely.
moment of, what?
And the misunderstanding, because people still, I'm amazed at how women, especially now, men, I think, don't really understand women's bodies, and they're not always interested in it. They're more just interested in what it can do for them, which is fine. Like, men are just much more simpler, and that's not a dig on men. I love men, don't get me wrong. But I think they're also not taught. But as girls and women, like, you should know when you're ovulating, what your body's doing. Your body tells you what it's doing. And women, I'm 51, and I know people that are like, wait, what? Like, well, yeah, it's on this day.
Cycle
And if you feel,
tracking and your mood, cycle
it
tracking and
blows
your energy levels,
my
cycle
mind.
tracking and your ability to have like output, when you can take on more stress, when you can't, when you know, when to kind of love yourself in the midst of that cycle. I'm learning that now, and I don't even have a period anymore.
Well, the menopausal thing is, I think it's a whole new world, but it's just everyday stuff. You're like, oh, I wonder, you feel a ping or a ting. I try to be super in tune with that. I'm not feeling myself. What did I eat yesterday? Have I been sleeping? Like, even some things as simple as that, where people haven't really talked about that, I think, in the past, but just the basic day to day, this is what my body's doing. This is what, do I have, you know, fluid emitting from my, you know, body in some different orifices coming out.
And what does that mean?
Right.
Is it abnormal?
Right.
know?
And people, if there's a different smell, if there's like, it's just, you should know that. And most women my age do not know that. And I'm shocked on a regular basis. I'm like, how do you not? Well, I don't. Open a book. Like, now there's more information than ever.
I think the biohacking movement that we're seeing now, and that verbiage coming alive a little bit more, is actually paving some runway for these types of conversations to happen about like cycle tracking and what is actually going on in your body when you have these surges of testosterone in your cycle, and like what that does to you and your ability to sleep or your ability to work out harder or not, or when you're in that declining phase. whatever. I think that's really, really amazing. And I have a 13-year-old daughter, so I'm like, I wish I knew these things, you know?
Yes.
That's why I started teaching it. And I think, again, this experience with my mother, like your mother with her grandmother, just said, and I remember as a young woman saying, if I ever have little girls, I never want them to feel this shame
Right.
associated with this. Because my mother would say things like, those
You're cursed.
Kotex, when you rolled them up, right? They were like big cotton bale things in the trash can. And we only had one bathroom we could put them in. And she would scream at us saying, never let your father see it. I'm like, he has 3 girls. Like, never
Right.
do we want to like shame the girls into something that
Your body's
isn't bad
doing
about.
this automatically.
Yes.
Why should I feel bad about it?
Correct.
You know? Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
But again, and your mom sounds like a terrible person, no offense, but I think that she came from a different time also. Her mother probably, so I think.
No, her mother died early. She was raised in a Cuban Catholic convent. So I
So,
mean, there's some,
lots of shame
exactly.
there, I'm sure. So she probably just didn't know instead of saying, you know what, I don't know, let me find out more. So there's always that shut down kind of, we're just not going to talk about it. And when we do, I'm going to make you feel really shitty about it because you're a bad person if you're curious about what your body's doing.
Yeah.
Your mother had
Yeah, you're a
children. We
deviant.
know what your body was doing. Right.
Yeah.
And come on, we know we did it at least a couple times. So it's interesting how the pendulum has definitely swung maybe a little too
thank
far.
God.
But there's a little bit, I think a
Yeah.
lot of information that tends to be misinformation out there.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's so much.
There's a lot of pussy power now.
Yes. And
So- Yeah. So I'm curious I would love to just touch a little bit on like dating post divorce and what that story has been for you. And are you dating now? Are you
I'm not dating
in a
now.
relationship? Okay.
Goodness, it's on my vision board. Yeah.
Is it something that you want for yourself? Do you close
I'm
your
trying
eyes
to
and
do
picture
some
yourself having a
spiritual
partner?
work. I do. I often say he's coming, but one of the things that I found, so as soon as I got divorced, I dated a younger man. I highly recommend that for a short period of time. I really feel like
You were making up for lost time. You were like, give me all
and
the
that
testosterone.
that was wonderful, though, to
Yeah.
kind of take.
Did he have
ownership.
kids?
He had one little boy, and it wasn't great. I mean, it was probably stepping into one dysfunction into another. Looking back at it,
It's such a
for what
minefield dating after divorce because it's like you want to be with someone that has children because you have to have them understand your priorities. If you're dating somebody and you have kids and they don't have kids, then there's just they don't have an understanding of what
The
your
time
real
and the
priorities
commitment
can be.
and- yeah.
Exactly. But even if we all have so much baggage at that point, it's like you can have the greatest guy in the whole wide world, but his kids may hate you. Or he might be amazing, but he's got a crazy ex-spouse who's going to make your life a living hell.
Miserable.
So there's always these like many, 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 many things.
but you walk into it, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this. You walk into this, and you're in love. Like you're in love. Like I couldn't remember. There was no drug that felt like this attraction that I had until I started to unpeel the layers and go, oh no, I'm looking at this like when I was 17, you're my new love and you're younger and we'll live. And then all of a sudden you're like, but that doesn't align with me. And you're an alcoholic and you're this and you're that. And so that experience, I still am grateful for it. The sexuality component for it, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
And then I dated a few men, and then I had the business of raising my son by myself. And he was rapidly approaching high school. And I remember someone saying to me, now you can leave him alone. He doesn't need you as much. And I remember thinking, now is when he needs me.
The most.
And that must have been what my journey was going to be about, because it became him. And I would occasionally date a man, and I was financially okay, I was smart, I was good looking, and then all of a sudden, and this could have been my own mindset, but I just felt like I had to be needy to be in a relationship again. And I wasn't needy. I had a job to do. I had to raise this boy. And somebody said, oh, well, you like spending time more with him. And I said, 1,000%.
1,000%.
I get one shot at this. And he's all mine. Like, my ex-husband was not involved. So I think that set the stage for me being okay with single. Because when I lost the weight, I would hear people say, you know what you need now?
Hot sex on a plate.
Well, that would be great. That, you know what would complete this picture? Is if you had a man. Now, if you had a man,
right.
If you had a man,
You're like,
you'd be able to show your, beautiful, thin self.
And honestly, ladies, it's going to happen probably. Well, whether it'll be just sex again, which I would not turn down in a heart, if it was safe, right? But
right.
But whatever it is, it's going to happen. And I'm kind of really leaving it to the universe, because I will tell you, I've never been happier in my own skin. Ever, 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 ever. I like me. I like being alone with me. I like
Katie's
me.
heard this a million times from me.
I'm
I'm good.
her.
I'm good.
I'm funny. I'm smart.
I make me laugh.
And you don't need
I
a damn
play
thing
in a
from
band.
anybody.
I have a good job. I'm financially. I speak 4 languages.
Yep.
I'm a fucking badass.
Yes.
And if God chooses that he's going to put a man to match me and see that and honor that and say,
elevate
oh my God.
that.
And elevate that, right?
Right. Make it
Then-
even better.
Yes.
And if he doesn't, I still wake up tomorrow morning and go, I like you.
Yeah.
I like the work you're doing. I like that you're setting the stage. Because, in the menopausal world, like you said, it's a very lucrative world, but it's still a world. How, can I ask your age, Karen?
I'm 51.
So you guys are like, that's that market. But what we see it sort of exponentially drop off is now in the 60-something market. Like, that still isn't as represented as I want it to be.
Most definitely.
And that's what I feel like I'm the bell ringer for. This is 67, and I'm doing a live on Thursday with a fellow young woman who's now a coach. Do you know Caroline Drury? Do you follow her?
I've heard
She's
of her,
friends with
yes.
Kiki.
Just from Kiki,
She's
yes.
just a bright light,
Yes.
young woman, and we're doing this thing called the 1,000-Day Project. And she was the one who inspired me, because I realized in 1,000 days I'll be 70.
Wow.
And I wanted to see, what is 70, if this is good right now,
What does it have in store for you? Yes.
what is 70 even better?
Yeah.
The best 70 you can be.
I love that
And
mindset. I don't
good.
think like that.
No, Karen
I don't think
is like, just
I
put me out to
didn't.
pasture.
let me get through today. Boom, 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 boom.
This
I'm
is
not
good for Karen to hear.
But 70, like in your head, try and imagine in 1,000 days, that number 7, there was something that just
it clicked.
was like, how do I stay in my lane? Because what does Jane Fonda call this period of life, our third act? It used to be considered an arc to age. So you went up and then you went down. She calls it an ascension.
She's like 90.
Yeah, she almost
I
is.
think she like 90, 89 or 90. So, I mean, and I think if we think of it like that, but again, you look at what we have around us and our parents and our grandparents and how they lived and sort of that slowing down, and because naturally, you get tired a little bit earlier, but I think that you don't have to. And so I think
I see
if
so many women just
in the 67-ish
and amplifying
right.
and
It's like, why do I
amplifying.
have to slow down? I can start a new career. I can start a new career at
Absolutely.
65
What
or at
if I
67.
waited my whole life for this? What if this was the time that this was supposed
Right.
to happen? I could have done it before, but I chose not to. But what if I'm choosing at this age not to be, and I love my grandkids, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be a full-time grandparent.
No.
I don't, if I have to, if they need me, but
But you know inside you have a lot to offer still that you have to get done.
I feel
you know
like
there's a feeling that is just propelling you that I have more to offer.
Still more to
is
do,
so
I would
awesome.
assume.
yeah, it just doesn't feel like, because I think we get 70 in the head and it's like, no.
No. No.
What does Gloria Steinem say about, and then a silver, haired group of warrior women will silently take over the world, and that's what I visualize.
Probably going to happen.
I fight
Because
every
the guys
day
are
for-
scratching their bellies and,
like they've had their turn. It's our turn.
we'll just keep shit
I
running.
love you guys so much. This
Oh
is
my
so
goodness.
fun.
Thank you so much. Okay, so one of the things that we always ask, and this is just me personally, how we show up in the world is so critical in terms of how we dress, our makeup, our clothing, and Karen and I are big fashion people, and obviously I'm in the makeup business, so I am always asking myself these three questions. How do you want to be seen? How do you want to be heard? And what do you want to leave them with? And so I want to pose that question to you is, what do you want to leave people with today that says like
That not
something
to
about
be
you?
scared of this or the number, or that there's such a wisdom that comes from your trials and your happiness and your early years, that if you could just go back to that and explore that and say, what did I dream about? And know that it isn't over until it's over. But that self-love, if a woman can learn the habits of self-love, and I say this over and over again, and this is my biggest lesson, is that when I learned to love myself first, keep the promises to myself and love myself, right? The world just became a better place. It was so much easier to love everybody else because I, for the first time, learned no is a sentence, a complete sentence.
Period.
And I really like me.
Yeah.
And that's why I did things like this.
Because you just don't need anything more at that point. You're not seeking anything. You're not looking for any kind of external validation. You are so good at just being great with you that
and no, there's
everything
room
else
for all
is
of
just
us.
an icing on the cake. But
I don't have to fight with you. I don't have to be more beautiful than
Not
you.
in
I don't have to dress
competition.
better. Or it's not a competition. It's there's room for all of us. And if there isn't, I bring up my own folding chair. And there we go.
Yeah.
Yes. I love
oh my
that.
gosh, Susan,
Love
you
that.
are so delicious. I had the best
Me
time.
too. I could have we could
interviewing
have got
you.
pajamas and
Yeah.
That's usually how we're like, okay, what else? Do we need wine? What else are we going to talk about? How can
We are
how
going
much
to
time
have
do
you
we have?
back on the show. I can tell you that much.
For sure.
I love
But
it.
good luck with your 1,000-day project. I can't wait to maybe we'll have you on again when you're in the midst of all of that and feeling all the feels and exploring what's there. That's super exciting. But again, just massive gratitude to you for sharing your history, your relationship history, your career history, and just yourself and your vivacious self. We're just so grateful to have you. So
Well,
thank
the same
you so
here.
much.
It's ditto for both of you. I've been, like I said, Katie, I've been fangirling for a long time.
Oh
so.
gosh,
She's
wow.
I'm
easy
glad
to
I
like.
took a chance. Yeah.
Yes.
You too, Karen, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just here.
No, stop it. You stop it right now.
I love you guys. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for being here.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.